Welcome to my video and thanks for stopping by. You want to buy your first rental property, which I think is great, and the whole process can feel kind of intimidating. So today I will go step by step, sharing everything that you need to know to make you as comfortable throughout the process. For people new to the channel, which is probably everyone, my name is Jake. I'm a 30-something living in Summer, USA with my wife and our dogs Archie and Harper, and I'm a full-time worker, a part-time personal finance dabbler, a travel enthusiast, and this is us in Zagreb, Croatia. This is a long video, but it's not a boring video, and I put a lot of information in here because that's what you need to know, and I put a lot of time into it as well. So if you could do me a huge favor and just tap that like button, it just lets YouTube know that people have the content so it can get shared with more people, which is a huge help for me. If you guys want to see how to live for free, I've linked a video up above and it's also in the description. And if you guys want to see a 4-unit that I lived in for free and cash flowed almost $1,000 a month, those are in the same spots, up and then down. But that is enough of all that. Let's start to finally dive in. Before you even begin to buy your rental property, there are two things you'll need to do. The first one being to save for a down payment, which is kind of obvious, but you also want to do a little bit of research. Before I bought that first property, which was a 4-unit, I was doing deep dives by reading books, listening to podcasts over about 4 months. The reason I waited was because I was going to move, so I knew when I went to a new location, I wanted to buy when I got there. With that whole research thing, I imagine that you're doing that now because you're watching this video. You'll never know everything, but you do want to know enough to feel confident. The next step is going to be the down payment. There are strategies to use seller financing where you put no money down, or to get a partner, which is something that I've not done so far, so I'm not going to talk about those. Depending on the type of home loan you get, you may put down 0% using a VA loan or 3.5% using an FHA loan, 5 to 19%. With those 5 to 19% loans, you will have MIP, which is an added fee that you pay to the lender for taking on the added risk of your loan. Now, if you don't have a lot of money, using those lower down payments is not a bad option to get into a property and buy as a primary residence, live in it for 1 year, move on to the next property with a low down payment. But whenever you're buying an investment property, from my experience, you'll need to put down 20 to 25% unless you buy it as a second home and use it as an Airbnb, because with those properties, you can't have a full-time lease. Now that you're all learned up and you've got your down payment, it's time for step number 1, which is getting your credit in order. Because unless you're gonna buy the house with straight cash, homie, which I highly doubt that you're going to, you will need to find a lender to give you a loan. You should get your credit in order, but it shouldn't hold you back either. Nowadays, people are typically getting loans with scores of 780, but that doesn't mean that you can't get one if you have a score of 640. The better the credit score, the better the terms, but it doesn't mean you have to wait. You can always refinance later on if you improve your credit. The most important part is taking action. You can do it! Step number 2 is making sure that you have all of your personal finance documents handy. When working with a lender, they'll want your last 2 years of tax returns. They may want your bank statements, your brokerage statements, your pay stubs, really any kind of assets you have. You can give them your credit score if you want, but from my experience, they'll typically run it on their own, which if you're talking to multiple people, that is okay, because multiple people can pull your credit when trying to get a mortgage within a 30-day span without getting multiple hits on your credit. The reason they're doing this is they want to get a full picture of your personal finance situation. They want to better understand how much income you're bringing in versus your expenses, like your car payments, your student loan payments, your credit card payments, to try to see how much you can afford, which is also known as your debt to income ratio. Step number 3, you'll need to talk to a lender. Now that you have your down payment, your credit score in order, and all of your financial statements, you'll want to talk to a lender to figure out your purchase price. This is super helpful because any real estate agent is going to want you to have a pre-approval letter. You don't want to be offering on homes you can't afford, or nowadays the market is pretty crazy, and when a home comes on to the MLS and it's priced right, it usually goes within a matter of days. And so you want to have your financing lined up to be able to go just as fast as everybody else. Step number 4 is to find an agent. Now that you have your pre-approval letter and your lender lined up, you now begin to work with an agent. And I'm sure you know somebody, or somebody knows somebody that knows an agent, but you may want to find someone that has experience with dealing with rental properties. The process is the same whether you're buying a primary residence or a rental property, but what you're looking for may be different. This is why it might be helpful to work with somebody that has experience with knowing how things rent, whether room counts are more important, whether it's the layout, how to convert a den space into a room to get more rent. When looking for a primary residence, you may be looking for more of like the homey feel, but with a rental space, you may be looking to maximize your rooms, and being able to know that stuff is super helpful. When looking for an agent, you want to also look out for things about how responsive they are, because again, with things being fast, you want to be able to make sure that they can show you a house or to put in an offer when you need to. Something else which may be helpful is looking at their level of experience. And this may ultimately make or break the deal, especially in today's market. Step number 5 is to begin to look at properties. This is meant to be the fun part, and I recommend you look at everything you can within your price range, whether that's in person or online. This can better help you understand the market and help you spot out when there's a deal out there. Usually the way that I go about it is I will look online, look at the pictures to try to get an idea of the layout, what the backyard space is like, and if at all possible, try to do a video walkthrough. And if I still like the property and the numbers make sense, which I'll talk about later, I will then schedule a walkthrough. Personally, I like going to open houses and I do enjoy that whole process, but I do feel bad at times making my agent go when I know that I'm not gonna buy the house. I don't really wanna waste his time. But I have found a realtor is much more willing to go through those things if you do have a track record of buying a property or if you are making offers. Step number 6 is figure out the cash flow. The reality is most properties don't make sense, and especially nowadays with prices going up. This means with the price of the mortgage and the price of current rents, you may actually be losing money, which is probably not what you want to do. It's also true that at a certain price, all investments make sense. And this is why it's really important to understand the numbers. First, you want to understand what the rent is in certain areas. And the way that I do this is either by a rentometer, which will allow you a couple chances to look up the rent, or by going into Zillow or apartments.com to see what other kind of units are renting for in that area. I do have a whole video on this, which I'll link above, but I will briefly touch on that here as well. But ultimately, people want different things out of their rental property. Some people want higher cash flow. Some people are high income earners and just want to put this into an asset where they can break even and get a lot of appreciation. So if you're looking for higher cash flow, you may be looking in the Midwest. You may be trying to do an Airbnb or even a rent by the room strategy. This is why it is important to know your strategy and run your numbers for how you want to invest. But since you're watching me, what I'm gonna recommend is that you are positive after all of your expenses. That means that after the mortgage, the property manager, the water bills, the landscaper, you still have more money coming in. You don't want to be in a situation where you're losing money every month and then you have a large expense and you're not able to cover that. You may have to be patient when looking for homes, especially in today's market, and that's okay. You don't want to rush into something that's not going to work. Sometimes you can help yourself out by being more creative, like turning a den into a bedroom, or if you have a basement, converting that to add in an extra bathroom or to more livable space, to try and increase your numbers to make a deal make sense. Step number 7 is you want to find properties with minimal cosmetic repairs. The best kinds of properties have things like a good foundation, roof, plumbing, and electrical. You can spend thousands of dollars on plumbing and electrical and no one's gonna know, and it's not gonna make a difference on the rental price. You ideally wanna find places that have issues with their floors or with the paint, because those things can easily be fixed. You may also need to change out a vanity or a countertop, which isn't a big deal either. You can find contractors on Angie's List, Google, Yelp, or hopefully your agent or property manager knows of someone. Usually I try to get 3 different bids and compare between each of them. I don't always go with the cheapest one. I go with who I think will do the best work on my timeline and who I think is the most reliable and responsive. Contractor headaches can ruin your property, whether that's by taking your money, not finishing the job, taking too long. But on that topic, usually you'll find out that any rehab costs twice as much and takes twice as long as you expect. Something that I've learned is that there's no assuming they know what you want, even if it's pretty obvious. I had flooring redone where I only needed 1 bathroom and I was gonna use the same flooring throughout the rest of the house. There was a pattern in the whole house, but they changed it up in the bathroom because they just didn't look. I thought it was obvious and I guess it was not. So be specific on what you want, very specific. When doing any rehabs on rental properties, I usually try to keep it neutral with a lot of whites and grays, which is helpful because that's in right now. I also try to get durable materials like tile, laminate flooring, quartz countertops. I usually try to steer clear of hardwood floors or even carpeting because I feel that that is gonna have to be changed out every time you turn over tenants. I usually try to find cheaper light fixtures, whether that's on Amazon, Overstock.com, even sometimes Home Depot. Now that you've found your location, the properties you want, the ones with minimal repairs, now let's make a deal. You have to expect that every offer is not gonna work out. You will have some where there's gonna be multiple bids and you're outbid, or there's a cash offer, which don't make sense, or maybe they like the financing better than yours. You may not wanna go higher because that just doesn't work with your numbers. There have been homes which I've lost because I just didn't wanna go that high, or because it brought in even another person at the same price that I had, but the seller's agent wanted the double commission. So you will lose some and that's okay. Now it's hard not getting emotional when you put so much time and effort into these properties. You do have to stick to your numbers and know that you're doing the best thing for you. You don't want to get caught up in a bidding war. At the same time, people also think that they're paying over asking and it's not a deal anymore, but that isn't always the case. The listing agent may be bad and they listed it underpriced. You may see value in the property by making some alterations. This is why it's important that you know the deal. If you go up $5,000, that may be an extra $1,000 of a down payment or $25 extra per month of mortgage, which shouldn't be a deal breaker, but you have to know what's worth it to you. So if the deal is great, you may want to be flexible. There are also ways you can negotiate later on once the house is under contract, whether you find repairs or have them cover some of your closing costs. That worked a lot better when the market wasn't as crazy though. Step number 9, make sure you're doing your inspections. This is super important and you want to do as many inspections as you can. Check the roof, the foundation, the electrical, the plumbing. You can bring in a contractor to find out just how much this is going to cost you. Just know that you're paying the inspector to find something and they will find something. I promise you. These may not be deal breakers, but you just want to know what you're walking into, what the cost is, or whether this is just too much for you to handle. I bought in a home which had foundation issues, but I was able to negotiate some of the seller repairs within that process. But something like a tree root, which is going into one of the plumbing pipes, is something you probably don't want to deal with. You don't have to be deal breakers. You can negotiate again with the seller, which is what I like to call the second negotiation. And the properties I'm usually buying are pretty dumpy, and I do usually get some back with repairs or seller concessions. They will be likely to negotiate with you because anything you find at this point and then back out, they would then have to tell the next buyer, and you've already made it this far, so you might as well see it all the way through. You can always ask and they may say no, and then you're in the same spot that you were, and you can determine whether you want to continue on with purchasing that home or not. My goal is to typically get the property under contract and then negotiate later on how I want to. Step number 10, you'll want to understand the escrow costs. You will have additional fees on top of your down payment, which in full transparency was not something that I knew when I bought my first property, which was kind of a bummer. Luckily, I had negotiated some of those seller credits to be able to not have to have so many fees, which was really helpful. Some of these costs will be like the appraisal fee, the underwriting fee, the title insurance, the title fee, which is basically the middleman between you and the seller. These whole escrow fees usually cost between 1 to 2% of the purchase price. Step number 11 is to get your chip and Joanna gains on and renovate. You'll want to start as soon as you can to make sure that all of your upgrades get done as needed. Most of the time, contractors have several jobs going on at the same time, and the squeaky wheel can get the most attention. Being able to stop by every day to check progress can be helpful, or to try to get visual updates. You can also offer to give them an extra percentage if they get done by a certain time, but that may backfire if they don't get it done. They may be less motivated. So it's up to you to work with your contractor to create a plan which benefits everyone. I also like to use subcontractors because I found them to be faster and more specialized. I recently redid a floor, which had the contractor 2.5 days. It would have taken my contractor probably about a week, and it would have taken me 3 weeks. Now, if your property is at a state, which I have, you can have your property manager go by to check on them, or to have the agent. You may want to give them a couple $100 for their time of going out there to check on it, but it is totally worth it. Step number 12 is to rent out your property. Now, if you're hoping to rent out your property for top dollar, which I imagine that you're hoping you are, you will want to make sure you have nice touches and nice pictures. I know with one of my units, I tried to add a couple 100 square feet, and when people came to look, it just felt smaller than they were expecting, and I could tell they weren't as interested, which kind of felt like I was wasting everyone's time. Now, if you're self-managing, you do want to make sure that you're able to answer your phone or respond back to emails quickly. Nowadays, a lot of people are able to apply online where they can send out multiple applications, and if you're able to respond back quickly, they may stop there, but if it takes you a while, they'll probably move on. Now, if you do those things, you'll have no problem renting out your property, and where I list mine is usually on Zillow, apartments.com, Redfin, realtor.com. I've been staying away from Craigslist, and the more places you list, the better. Never limit yourself to just one place. But do me a favor, and yourself as well, and screen your tenants. And please, screen your tenants. You'll want to do a background check. You want to do a credit check. With all my applications, I made them pay to do the background check, and they had no problem with that. Or even through Zillow, they'll do one which they can send out multiple people, which is helpful. You will also want to call the references and their job to make sure they actually have one. But just promise me you'll do this step, and don't just go through your gut and say, well, they seem nice. Number 13, get the next one. Most people don't just buy one rental property. Once they have one, they want another one. This is typically the hard part, saving enough to get another down payment on another property. Seeing as most investment properties usually want 20 to 25% down, that's $20,000 per $100,000 of house value. This usually is people to try to get creative, and that way they can cycle the same money over and over again. People will try to flip homes to earn extra income. They may use hard money lenders. They may use a strategy where they rehab a property and refinance all the money they put into it. But even if you bought one property every year, or even every other year for the next 10, 20, 30 years, you'll be racking up a lot of homes, which is a lot of appreciation and a lot of equity and a pretty nice retirement. Now, I understand a lot of people these days want things as fast as possible, and I'm the same way, but there is something wrong with being patient and growing your worth over time. And as I mentioned, I might be trying to go a little bit quicker. So if you want to see me try that and learn from my mistakes, then subscribe. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful and better understand the process of buying your first rental property. And if you know somebody that can benefit from this information, then consider sharing this with them. If you want to help me grow the channel, then tap the like button. And if you want to be around for when I post my next video, do not forget to subscribe. But I will see you guys next time.